Welcome back to another edition of Underachieving with Jake. I, of course, am your host, Jake Williams, and this is the section of off-panel, off-topic that Tyler doesn't know about. It's going to be, again, where I talk about my favorite games. Last month, I did a video on Fallout New Vegas, and I've been playing that for a while and how much I enjoy that. I still need to do a video on the DLCs, but I am struggling through dead money. I'm just saying, I am. But that all aside, let's talk about what we're really here to talk about. A video game that I have played multiple times and enjoyed every bit of it, every time, except for maybe probably the DLC stuff. Insomniac Spider-Man, Marvel's Spider-Man on the PS4 and the PS5. I bought it on PS4 when it came out then, so I just recently bought a PS5. Now I'm playing through it, or I played through it on the PS5 for this video. So let's just get into it. I've always had a love for Spider-Man. I think my love for the character started where most of my generation does, with the amazing 90s Spider-Man animated series. That 90s show was highly influential, good or bad. And I'll be quite honest, when I watched it as a kid, absolutely loved it. Going back now and watching it, maybe not so much. I don't think it holds up as well as we remembered as a kid, but that's fine. It was a different era, different time. I still credit that show for one of the reasons I love Venom so much. That was actually my first introduction to Venom, because I didn't really read the comics when I was younger, so I came into comics a little bit later, and like I said, that's probably at least my generation. I can't speak for every generation, but I think a lot of Spider-Man fans, I think that was a gateway into the character. And I think I've said it on the show before. I've said it on, I literally did a Batman podcast for a while, but Batman has always been my favorite character, but Spidey has always been a very close second. And again, that is a thanks to the animated series and really the Raimi trilogy. When that movie came out, I kind of, like a usual kid, I kind of just pushed away those Batman toys, took out all the new Spider-Man toys. Very influential. And of course, for me, the big tent pole, while we're here talking about this game, I would say the amazing, let's see what I did there, Neversoft Spider-Man game on PS1. I remember vividly getting that video game on Christmas and losing my mind, because my parents thought it was funny for Christmas because I didn't have a 64 growing up. I had a PS1. My parents thought it was interesting and thought it'd be funny, I should say, to put the game in a popcorn box. So when I got to open the box, or open my wrapping for the present, it was just popcorn. I was like, what the fuck? And then I opened it, and it's the game, and I lost my mind, my ever-loving mind. So when I found out that Insomniac, one of my favorite studios, a lot of great games come from Insomniac. So when I found out Insomniac was making a Spider-Man game, I was hooked, even though I didn't have a PS4 when it was first announced, which was true. Very true. Luckily, my amazing wife, when I graduated college, after I went back to school and finally got my degree, she bought me a PS4, and the rest is history. So there we go. I kind of want to just break down one of the things that I will say in this video, and this will be the title of the video, and it'll be on the thumbnail and everything, and I will stand by this. This version of Peter Parker, of Spider-Man, hell, even of Miles Morales, are I don't know about Miles, because with the Spider-Verse movies, but if those Spider-Verse movies didn't exist, probably my favorite version of Miles. So before we had that movie, Miles was my favorite Spider-Man character. This was my favorite version of Miles. And I will say it again, for the people in the back, Insomniac Games Spider-Man is my favorite version of the character, and we're going to talk about that. So the story of Insomniac Spider-Man really is an interesting one. It's split up between different factions. They have one thing in common. They hate Norman Osborn. Now, it's more complex about that, but but I don't really want to break that down. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I really want to talk about what Insomniac did here by creating a world and a version of Spider-Man that I love, that feels true to the character, feels true to everything that Peter does, but does enough to make it feel distinct and does enough to make it feel like its own world. So yeah, the main thing that everybody hates is Norman Osborn, and that's one of the changes that we have in the storyline. Because in the comics, Norman was the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. at one point. I want to say he was mayor in the Spider-Man comics. I can't remember. I know during Dan Slott's run, he had J. Jonah Jameson as mayor of New York. It seems like anybody that hates Spider-Man is the mayor, but they just kind of come out right out of the gate and make him the mayor in this game. And he's running for re-election, even though he's kind of running unopposed. But anyway, he is mayor. He's still the same wealthy Norman, but he's not Green Goblin in this game, which I think shows a lot of restraint. I was a little surprised that he didn't become Green Goblin in this game. I'm glad he didn't, but I was a little surprised they didn't do that. But again, I'm happy with it. Norman sucks, and he's pissed off a lot of people. That's really what you can break down from this. And the factions are tied to each bigger villain. So you fight Kingpin's crew, the Demons, which would be Mr. Negative's team, and Sable Mercs. All have outposts that you have to clear out for XP and base tokens and all that side stuff. I think that's one thing I do enjoy about this game. I think all of the side stuff, all the side activities, whether it's the backpacks or the landmarks or just the side missions in general, I did enjoy. I found myself, when I first played the game, and now playing through it again and not getting my trophies to transfer, so now I'm trying to platinum it on PS5. But when I first played it, I found myself taking time to go do those side missions and do those side things. And I was just really happy with that, because usually for me, I do a lot of, in these open world games, a lot of beelining and then doing the side stuff a little bit later in the story. And this was one of the first times where I kind of was like, no, I want to explore this world. I want to hunt after these backpacks, because the backpacks are fun little world building pieces to the game that really are glorified collectibles, but it's so fun to dive back into his backstory when you realize, oh yeah, we're dealing with an older Spider-Man. He's been doing this a while. So originally the game kind of gets set up as cleaning up all the mess that was from getting Kingpin, because he's the first boss of the game. You fight him first, which I think was a nice touch. I think what's interesting about this game, when its story and how they use Peter, is it does a good job of incorporating Amazing Spider-Man and stuff, because I want to say Dan Slott was a consultant on this, but it incorporates a lot of what he did with Amazing Spider-Man, but also incorporates Ultimate Spider-Man. I think it does a great job of creating a web, again with the puns here, of finding ways of Insomniac taking things that they liked from each iteration of the character, of the main canon, of the Ultimate comics, of the movies. I think a good portion of every Spider-Man movie is represented, even the Tom Holland ones, which were fairly new when this game was coming out and still fairly new as we keep playing these games. But yeah, I can't stress that enough. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I enjoy this game and why I love this version of the character, and it's my favorite, is because of just how fun it is to feel on the ground floor of that world building and be a part of that world building. But after you fight Norman the Kingpin, it kind of just sets up to be changing to Mr. Negative and the Demons, trying to ruin Norman's life before finally setting up the Sinister Six and Doc Ock. They did an amazing job of not telling you at all that Doc Ock was in this game and the promotional stuff. You mostly saw Mr. Negative. They alluded to the Sinister Six and some stuff, but they never actually showed Doc Ock in this. And I think how they handled Doc Ock was, again, taking from Spider-Man 2 and taking, really what they did is they found a new way to tell the story of Spider-Man 2 in this. And I think do a better job than Raimi's movie of developing a relationship with Octavius and Peter. Granted, you can do that in a video game versus a movie. You only have a certain amount of times. But regardless, the culminating battle with Doc Ock and Peter is this big bombastic comic book story that takes all those things, a web of all those things, and makes it its own character while also paying homage to all the things that makes Peter great, all the things that make Spider-Man great. And I think how they did it, where he has to fight his mentor at the end, and the reason he finally snaps and just says, "I'm done with this guy," is where he finds out, or when he realizes that Octavia's got Aunt May sick. He released the Devil's Breath. That's something that's introduced in this game, this very viral, crazy disease. And believe it or not, pre-COVID, when this game originally came out. And yeah, he kind of just loses it when he finds out that Doc Ock did it. And that was finally the breaking point, because Peter, as a character, and why I think they continue to nail it here, is to a fault, Peter Parker will try and find the good in people, consistently try and do the right thing and believe in the goodness of people, and that always seems to bite him. It always hurts him, and it culminates big time here with Doc Ock. And again, it's just so effective. And by the time that it happens, and by the time you get to that reveal of him finally joining the Sinister Six and all this other stuff, I think was just really, really well done. And, I think that's what really makes it work so well, is this game just gets that right. It's world. This is a wholly new universe built for this game, and honestly, would not be surprised if in Spider-Man 2 we get introduced to Wolverine, because Insomniac's also making a Wolverine game, and they kind of maybe have a connected Marvel game universe, which would be cool. But yeah, I love that this is a totally unique world, but also finds ways to take ideas that came before it and make it their own. And it's always great, but it always and that's another thing too. It feels lived in. It feels like Peter has been doing this for a while. He's got a handle on how this thing is. With the backpacks, or with the web shooters, and how you, or all the gadgets and the skills, and how you keep developing him as a character. It makes sense that this Spider-Man knows how to whip some ass. Like, he's been doing it for quite some while. And yeah, I think that's the best choice this game can make, was aging up Peter and giving him that experience, and also building an established history and not having to have origin stories for all of these villains. The one villain that gets an origin story is Doc Ock. Everybody else is established. Lee doesn't really have an origin story in this. You see a little bit of it in the later missions. You finally get out what caused him to be Mr. Negative, or what the experiment led to, and you find out it's Norman. That's why he hates Norman, blah, 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 blah. That being said, 2 out of the 6 members of the Sinister Six only getting a backstory is totally fine in this, because I've talked about this before. We live in a world where superheroes are so mainstream, and most people have an idea of what these characters are because they've seen different iterations of the characters. Scorpion hasn't been in live action, but at this point we've seen a live action Vulture. We've seen a really bad attempt at a live action Rhino. We've seen another, again, a choice was made at a live action Electro before No Way Home came out. But it is interesting to see that they're like, okay, most people that will play this game, like, I think they understand that, hey, there's a crossover. And I think that's why the backpacks work, not only to world build, but also maybe someone who's not as familiar with the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery kind of gets an idea of what's going on here. But for the most part, they're like, hey, most people know who these guys are. I think, yes, you're going for a broad audience with a video game, but you know that a good portion of the people that are going to play a Spider-Man game have either read a Spider-Man comic, or know about the Spider-Man lore, or know enough to know what these villains are doing, who they are, what their motivations are. And I think, again, putting an experience to him and knowing these characters makes it all the while better. And the fact that we get all these quips that Spider-Man's known for, and all this great humor that he's known for, adds so much more with the fact that he's known these characters and fought them before, beat them before. They break out of the raft because he put them there in the first place. I love that. So you're not bogged down by backstory with every character, and you don't have to fight an origin story 6 times in this game. Going with the experienced Spider-Man approach also makes me enjoy this more because he's quippy like in the comics. He has experience. He's a funny, confident, and really faithful rendition of the character. And on the regular show, I was talking about it in leading up to doing this video. I've been playing it a lot, and I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts briefly before I made this video on the pod. But I said this game does a great job of presenting Peter and Spider-Man together. The best stories for this character, for any superhero character, is always going to be the conflict between their secret identity and their superhero identity. And this game does such a great job of actually making me care about Peter and not just be like, oh, let's skip the parts where he's talking to May and talking to MJ and Miles. I don't care. Let's just get to the Spider-Man punchy fun stuff. No, I liked it when the game slowed down. I liked it when the game made me sit in these moments with Peter and have those little experiences of Peter. It was nice, and something that you can utilize more in a video game than you could in a movie and maybe even a comic book. And I really like that. And I mean, that's not to say there's some amazing set pieces in action and some are blockbuster moments in this game, but when the game is most impressive to me is when it does slow down and have those character moments, because that's always what it's going to be about. You can have the best visual effects, you can have the best gameplay, the best mechanics and all that stuff, but I think a lot of it has to boil down to story. I have to care about this Spider-Man. I have to care about his conflicts and what he does, and that's always great. So whether it's Mary Jane, whether it's Aunt May, or even Yuri Watanabe, the police captain of this, some of the best moments in the game are those moments. I mean, the whole Spider Cop narrative when you're helping out the police and he keeps Spider Cop, and then having the payoff of her play into that when you've set up all the little satellites in the game, and then she plays into it, and then Peter responds to it, and she's like, "Oh my God, I made a mistake." That stuff is fun, and that's great. And every moment's special, even the gut-wrenching finale when Peter has to do and again, classic Spider-Man story where Spider-Man always loses no matter what the scenario is. The classic situation where he can save Aunt May or he can save a bunch of other people that are sick. And, of course, he makes the decision to save everybody else because that's what he does. That's why he's Spider-Man. The best Spider-Man stories are when he loses. And in the comics, now that's kind of gone a little overboard. And, yeah, I do like to see a happy ending, and I think you get it in this game. That's another thing, too. You have the devastating loss of Aunt May, the bold decision to take out Aunt May in the first game, not knowing they'd get a second to at the time, to take her character, and she's the whole, again, she's really well done, well acted, well written, and so when she dies at the end of this game, spoilers, I guess, for a game that's been out since 2018. When she goes at the end of this, it's heartbreaking, and there's that emotional moment. But then to see Peter and Mary Jane finally get back together at the end of this game is a nice little touching moment, especially when you find out throughout the game when won't they get back together. Aunt May is constantly like, "Are you two back together yet? Get back together, please. Come on." To finally see them do that after that ending is a nice little sweet bow on it, and I think adds to the gut-wrenching moment. So why do I love it? Why is this my favorite version of Spider-Man? Well, I think I pretty much laid it out for you. Anytime I did anything in that game, I not only felt like Spider-Man and felt like a superhero and felt very powerful, but I also felt like what I was doing in that game was making a difference, especially the research stations, which was such a nice touch to showcase Spider-Man in a positive light without him punching someone. The research stations are literally just helping out animals and doing things for the environment, because in this universe, Harry's mom was an environmentalist, and so then Harry Osborn wants to be an environmentalist. Oh, by the way, he's not even in this game. Again, a bold strategy. The Osborns are in it and have an impact on the story, but Norman is not Green Goblin, and Harry isn't even in the game. He's in Europe there in the story because he has the same illness his mother had. And then we see him at the end setting up Venom, setting up the second game. But all that aside, just the fact that they make Harry an environmentalist, which is another interesting decision, and then to help out Harry be an environmentalist, you're doing things like, stopping waste from happening, or you're fixing water pressure, or it's like getting the cat out of the tree, right? But used as side missions, and it really makes you feel like a good dude. That's really what it boils down to. I always joke with my friends, like, if there's one thing in life you can always say is just like, be a good person, be a good dude. And, there's so many touches to this where like, you can hit the punch button when you're around citizens, but instead of punching them, he'll do like finger guns and he'll wave or he'll greet people. And it's nice to feel like you're doing good. So many games like to have the good or evil karma, and it's very obviously what the two are, or some sort of morality system. And this game doesn't have it. You are Spider-Man, and Spider-Man's a superhero, and he's a good person, and he's going to do good things. And I think that is why I love it so much, and why I think it's my favorite version. No, why it is my favorite version of Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And that's not to say there are great comic books out there that I like, or the movies that I like. I just really love this version of Spider-Man, and I think that Insomniac had a really high bar to hit, and I think they really hit it and really took it to the next level. And I cannot wait to play Spider-Man 2 when it comes out in October. And I'm just excited to see where Insomniac takes this Spider-Man universe that they've crafted, and maybe even further with the Wolverine game whenever that comes out. So yeah, I absolutely love this game. I think that I've played it like 4 times. I probably had to play it, 3 or 4, and maybe a 5th time because I have to get the New Game Plus Platinum. New Game Plus trophy to get the Platinum. So we'll see how that goes. Well, that's pretty much all I got to say. I think I made enough thesis of why this is my favorite version of Peter Parker. Is this, and Spider-Man, is this your favorite version of Spider-Man? Let me know in the comments down below. And if it isn't, what is your favorite version? Is it Tobey Maguire in the Raimi trilogy? Is it Tom Holland in the MCU Spider-Man? Is it, a certain run in the comics? Is it, a certain, is it Dan Slott's Spider-Man? Is it J. Michael Straczynski's Spider-Man? Is it Bendis' Ultimate Spider-Man? What's your favorite version of Spider-Man? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching another episode of Underachieving with Jake. And I will say, with the New Vegas one, I didn't really say what game I'm going to do next. I'm going to keep going with Spider-Man because I got to get ready for Spider-Man 2. So Spider-Man Miles Morales, I will be playing that next and talking about that next because I'm really excited to jump in that game. I played that one a couple times, and I'll give you my opinions on that and why I love that version of Miles Morales. And I'll be honest, I don't have a big sample size of Miles Morales, but I really like what Insomniac did with this character, and we'll talk about that in the next time that we do one of these. In the meantime, keep on playing or something. I don't know.